Hi, hello, and welcome to Founded, a Pleasant Phantom production. I'm Tori Phantom. And Founded is a podcast where we're going to find the stories you missed in history class and so much more. Why am I making an American history podcast? Well, there's several reasons why I started it now, and I can explain those, and I will. But truthfully, I've been interested in this subject since I was a kid who was hiking, learning to drive, and even sledding at the Saratoga battlefield. And then I started making history cards for my kid for other reasons I can explain. And now I've read several biographies and history books a week. And I've wanted to create an American Revolution series for a long time. And I even put out one single video on YouTube. It's still up if you want to check it out. But the problem being was that I was struggling to talk to myself. So on Founded, I will be talking to my friend and regular InfoDump listener, Gwenna Lathland.
Hi.
Hi. Now, Gwenna studied history in college, which sounds like she would be a great fit for this, right? Like she'll know stuff. But
no.
yeah.
No, I actually studied ancient European through the Tudor age. Notable for not really including anything about the colonies, since those didn't exist till like the 1600s.
Yeah, 1607 is when the 13 colonies were established. So
right.
Yeah.
So you can ask me about the Celts. I can tell you some stuff. Ask me about the Moorish influence on Spanish politics. I can tell you stuff about that.
What if I ask you about Thomas Jefferson?
I can tell you that he was the author of the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
He was the third president of the United States.
Yep.
There was some weirdness with his slaves.
Absolutely.
He lived in Monticello, and he died on the 4th of July.
And?
What you mean, and? That's all I got on Thomas Jefferson.
So Gwenna comes with a public school education about the American Revolution, which is good because while I started with a public school education about the American Revolution, I then read all of these books.
God, there's so many books.
So many. Then there's more coming. I'll tell you what.
I've seen your to be read list. I understand. So why did you read all those books?
Well, it started because my kid needed me to explain better.
Come again?
So, okay. So I mentioned the history cards here. Okay.
Yeah.
My kiddo found a love for history when she's about 6 years old. And then by the time she was 7, she fell in love with the American Revolution. I don't really know how that happened. And then
there was one book that did it.
And then
if you ever identify what that book is, cherish it forever.
Right. And then she found Hamilton. So that was just really solidified at that point. And so I have always left notes in my kids' lunch boxes,
which is adorable, by the way.
I put too much effort into them because if I'm going to do something
adorable,
I'm going to do too much. That's kind of my thing. And so I had started this past school year, I would leave facts about American history, and she really loved it. And then one night I had a little extra time and was feeling a little ambitious. So I made a trading card out of an index card featuring a founding father, and that kind of snowballed. And so these cards, they have a founding father or historical figure on the front and then facts about them on the back. So the first one, of course, was an old dead white dude. And
the first several were old dead white dudes.
Yeah. And that snowballed into creating, I think I have over 150 American Revolution trading cards, but they're not just of old dead white dudes. There's also women, Native Americans, and other persons of color, as well as other influential folks over in Europe too. And I've learned so much along the way, and I am still keeping a list of new names I find when reading my biographies and history books, because this series will continue into next school year.
I was going to say, next school year, are you still going to do the trading cards until your kid's like, that's enough, mother?
Well, if she reaches a that's enough mother point, I probably keep doing them for myself. I really enjoy it.
So what can we expect from a podcast about the American Revolution and how the country of the United States came to be?
Right. Okay. So I'm actually going to ask you some questions to explain that.
Let's go.
So to start, what do you know about these people?
Okay.
Samuel Adams and John Hancock. Do you even know why I would have mentioned them together?
other than their founding fathers. And I imagine that Benny Franklin and Georgie Boy and Tommy Jeff and Sam Adams and John Massive Signature Hancock hung out at the bars. I know Sam Adams is famous for beer.
Which he had nothing to do with that brand at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why did I think
it's funny.
Samuel Adams was a brewer, and that's why we have Sam Adams beer?
Well, his dad.
Our actual Sam Adams is unassociated with the beer named after him.
Yeah, that company started in the 1980s. And it's
Cool.
also, fun fact, Samuel Adams did not like going by Sam, and the British
I'm sorry,
called
Samuel?
him Sam as an insult. Yeah.
And then John Hancock, literally the only thing I know about John Hancock is the massive signature. And I think he was in charge of the Continental Congress at one point.
He was the president of the Continental Congress after the second. Yeah, he was elected.
Okay. That's what I know about Samuel, and I'll stop calling him Sam. We respect people's identities here.
Exactly. They were incredibly influential and in cahoots with each other, and they kind of roused the rabbles that might have started the revolution. We'll get into that. What about Thomas Hutchinson?
Yep, I'm sure he was a very nice man.
No, he was definitely a royal governor in Boston at the time.
He was not a very nice man. No. I don't know anything about Thomas Hutchinson.
He was kind of imagine him the arch nemesis of Samuel Adams and John Hancock. Okay, we'll skip to a different part of the revolution here. James Madison, what do you know about him?
He was one of our presidents.
And?
That's it. That's all I got. He was one of our presidents.
You watched Hamilton. He wrote the Bill of Rights that he didn't want to write. He thought there was no use for it, and then he changed his mind.
I did get the sense from Hamilton that he was just a curmudgeonly little guy.
Well, he was actually a very little guy. He stood about 5'2" and weighed about 90 pounds. And was very sickly.
Listen, we support short kings.
Yeah, so he was a teeny tiny guy. He had what he called fits. He had anxiety attacks that would kind of And I find that parts of his story incredibly inspirational. Okay, what about Lafayette?
Taking these reins, making red coats redder with blood stains, and I'm never going to stop. And that's all I got. That's I can't do the rest of the rest.
So close with that rap. So close.
That's all I know. I knew that Lafayette had a big to do with boats. Yeah. I knew that without Lafayette, we would 100% have lost either the war or at least a really important battle. But I think without Lafayette, we would have lost
Lafayette
the war.
Was incredibly important. And do you know why he ended up there?
No, that's the thing. Yeah. I have no idea why Frenchie McFrenchinson was over in the colonies in the first place.
We're gonna leave it at revenge and move on. Okay, what do you know about John Adams and Abigail Adams?
I know that John Adams was a president. Mm-hmm. I know that if the musical was telling the truth, Hamilton supported him.
No.
Okay.
Maybe at one point.
I know that Abigail Adams was a baddie bee way ahead of her time. And I know that Paul Giamatti played John Adams in that one show on that one channel one time.
That is, I guess, the most base level of information. Yeah. Abigail Adams.
Education, Tori, is what I got.
I think Abigail Adams is the best part of John Adams.
I think the history books accurately reflect that too.
Yeah, she's fun too, because she was once quoted saying that she wished that she had the right to vote just so she could vote against John Hancock. And she was...
I do know a little bit more about Abigail Adams because my eldest daughter is named after Abigail Adams.
Oh, okay. So
I know a little more. Yeah. I have an unfair advantage about Abigail Adams.
Yeah. And she was John Adams' number one
John Adams
confidant.
Would not have been John Adams had Abigail not been back there going, John, stop being a beep.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. What about Paul Revere?
The British are coming.
He never said that.
Dang it.
We'll get to that. Okay, we're going to move away from people here, okay?
All right.
What do you know about the Sugar Act?
That there were probably some taxes about sugar because typically when there is a noun and the word act, it means that they made some taxes about a thing and everyone got mad about that.
Yeah, it was a redoing of the Molasses Act. Actually lowered the prices, but everyone was really mad about it because they suddenly were cracking down on actually enforcing the rules, and the colonists really loved smuggling. It was like a big hobby of theirs. What about the Stamp Act?
Same thing. We're probably getting mad at in my head they're postage stamps. I know that is not the case because we didn't have a postal service, so we weren't doing postage stamps. So there was probably like a tax stamp that they were mad at.
They had to pay for every paper good had to have this seal, the stamp, and they had to pay extra for it, and it never actually went into effect because of the riots. So
okay,
we'll get into that too. First Continental Congress.
That was the little provisional government we set up when we decided that we weren't British anymore.
No.
Dang it.
First Continental Congress. No, that's a totally different thing. That's when they were trying to reconcile with Britain. So Second Continental Congress.
Is that the provisional government we set up after we declared that we weren't Britain anymore?
Kind of. They still really just wanted to reconcile, but it turned into we're going to be our own country,
so
okay?
there were points at which that we started a revolution and went, no, never mind.
Yeah.
We want to be friends.
Yeah.
Please take us back. We tried to crawl back to our ex. We tried to crawl back to our toxic ex.
They didn't want to be an ex yet. They wanted to be British subjects.
I know.
We're going to get into all of that. They never tried to crawl back once it was declared, but you're not even ready. It's these things are so much more than a glossary term in a textbook. I'll tell you what. Okay, Boston Massacre.
Some people got into their fifis and some other people got real hurt in Boston.
Yeah, it was the most deadly snowball fight in history, and it wasn't even a massacre. It was propaganda. Okay, Boston Tea Party.
This one is where a bunch of colonists took a whole bunch of tea and dumped it into the sea rather than pay the taxes on it. And then that made a whole bunch of people mad.
There's so much more that goes into that one, too. And Abigail Adams is involved. So that one, I think, is one of my favorite stories because it's so petty. But I'm not telling it to you right now.
We love petty.
I love
petty.
And Paul Revere's Midnight Ride.
I used to think it was British that they're coming, so that's not true.
Who is he going to warn? And who else was there? So Paul Revere was there. Who else was there? Who else was on that midnight ride?
There was more than Paul riding that night.
You haven't heard of William Dawes? Okay. Who were they going to warn?
Everybody else? Philadelphia?
This is weirdly going to connect right back to Samuel Adams and John Hancock. But I'm not telling you the whole story right now.
All right.
Instead, I'm going to give you stuff you definitely probably haven't heard of.
Right.
And definitely probably that is the official term I'm going with. All right.
I can guarantee you, seeing as I thought I had more of I see a note. I knew that some of these questions were coming and I was so confident coming into this.
All right. Salutary neglect.
No.
Coercive acts.
This is what this episode's feeling like. Go ahead.
Maybe you know the coercive acts as the intolerable acts?
Oh, those ones I know.
Yeah, that's the coercive acts.
Yeah, I have no idea what the intolerable acts were, but I know those two words together.
All right.
Somebody did a thing and everybody got mad because that's pretty much what the acts did.
Do you know who Phyllis Wheatley was?
I know Phyllis from The Office.
Phyllis Wheatley, the first African-American published poet woman. Committees of Correspondence.
That sounds like the best pen pal club in the world.
Yeah, it sounds boring on purpose because they were doing stuff they weren't supposed to do. Ooh. Okay, the turtle. The turtle. You don't.
There is something important to the American Revolution, just generally referred to as the turtle.
Yeah, the first ever submarine used in battle. Benjamin Rush.
Benjamin Rush, I have a crush on.
Yeah, he's great.
He's a petty great. Queen, and we love Benjamin Rush.
You don't even know the half of it yet. I play a game where Tori, every history book.
According to your reports, do you even know the half of it? This man was everywhere all the time.
I literally play a game. Every biography, every history book I read, where I see how long it takes for Benjamin Rush to come up because he's going to show up.
That man ran his mouth more than we do.
He did. So, who was the father of the American Revolution?
I'm going to confidently say the wrong answer because I feel confident about it. It is the wrong answer.
All right.
But the public school educated girl inside me says George Washington. After this knows that can't possibly be right.
Samuel Adams.
Dang it.
Even Thomas Jefferson referred to him as the father of the American Revolution.
Okay.
So really the question is, why should you care about any of this, right?
Because knowing where we came from helps shape and prepare us for where we're going.
And it contextualizes where we are, because you will learn along the way how much of these stories actually has so much to do with what's happening right now. And also like the drama, like the tea was so hot before they dumped it into the harbor. It's so fun. It's so much drama, and I love it. And that's what we'll be finding out on Founded. In fact, to get to things like the turtle, we have to go way before the battles of Lexington and Concord, where the shot heard round the world rang out. And we have to start with George Washington.
Obviously.
Yeah, but we have to start with George Washington before he was good at anything, because trust me, he was absolutely terrible at pretty much all of it. What do you know about Jumonville's Glen and Fort Necessity?
I have a feeling you're about to tell me.
Oh, yeah.